Well, something happened to our sound on our iPhone recording. Not sure what it was, but it's the next day. We got the Belarus in the shop. Last night it got late, but we did get it running. We ended up replacing the starter, got it to turn over, and then had some fuel issues. We drained all the fuel out of the tank, cleaned the first stage filter, which has a damaged or broken screen in there. That we got to order that. And then we replaced the second stage filters and then tried to prime it. Couldn't get the primer to work. So we ended up replacing an O-ring on the priming plunger, and that seemed to get us where we could get fuel all the way up to the injectors and actually hear it going back into the fuel tank. So we knew we had good fuel pressure there. And then it fired off. Like I said, it was after sun went down, but we shut her down that night. And then this morning we came out, engaged the hydraulic pump, and it fired right up. And then we were able to move the 3-point hitch and the loader. So it looks like the hydraulics are working. Went ahead and backed it in here and started a list of what we need to do on our whiteboard. Or we want to go through and change all our fluids, oils, clean the filters, and just do a good thorough, do some electrical repairs. We got a replacement battery clamp and some electrical terminals. So hopefully we can troubleshoot that, figure out what's going on. So let's get started.
Okay, so pulled off that air shroud for the cooling fan, and hard to get a good length. You can see there's a lot of buildup on the bottom end. Let's see anything else that too concerning. I guess up here by the glow plugs. So I think once we get it running or get all the fluids changed, I will pull it out onto the driveway and get some degreaser on there and clean off the engine, get it all good. We couldn't pop the hood before because we had to pull that crossbar off, so I already pulled that bar off so we can get the hood up a little ways. Can't really get to the air filter housing, so I think what I'll do, we'll get everything done except for the air filter, then lift the loader up and see if I can tilt the hood up a little higher to get to that air filter. You can see it's kind of blocked. I can get this off, but getting down there to the oil bath is gonna be a little difficult. So another thing that we found was got some busted wires here. He said the fuel gauge quit working, so we'll see if we can, looks like 2 wires that are broken. See if we can reconnect those. Then we'll get the battery clamp put on. I got the oil draining right now. It's a cleanable centrifugal filter, so looks like the oil's done dripping. Oh no, it's still draining a little bit. It's a cleanable centrifugal filter. So once this pan's done draining, we'll pull it over there, drain it, and then take it off and clean it. And move on to the transmission, just work our way backwards. Okay, so we got the centrifugal filter out of the housing. It's pretty straightforward. We had this holding the top of the filter housing on, and then with a copper washer. Then we had this holding that centrifugal filter, and you can see down in there. I'll wipe it out. I ordered a new O-ring. We'll see if it's the right one, and we'll get this cleaned up and get going. It's pretty slick. I've never messed with a centrifugal oil filter, so I like. So I think I marked it. It already had some marks on it. Somebody marked it, but actually didn't get it back together. You can see a black paint there, black paint there. I scribed it. And then we'll see. I mean, I didn't notice any vibrations, but we'll go ahead and get a wrench, take this off, and see what's underneath, how dirty it is. Okay, so we pulled the top off. You can see there's some slight buildup, tarnish in there. We'll get it cleaned out. some sediment, so it looks like the filter was doing its job. So we'll go ahead and get this cleaned up, put back together, and hopefully be ready to put some oil in it. All right, we got it all cleaned up. So underneath this is just several little passages. I should have pulled it off. Here, let's see if I can do it real quick. Without dropping it. So where I found that the most buildup on debris is in these corners on that outside. So it looks like it's flinging it out there. So I'll just use some brake cleaner and clean it all up. So that's all ready. And clean the screen. And then got this all cleaned up. All that tarnish and crap off of it. So we're gonna put it back on. I did remove the little jets that are down there. It's a number 10 wrench. And one of them had some sludge buildup, the other one, but they weren't plugged at all. So I just cleaned them real good with brake cleaner. We'll put this back on and we'll get it back on the tractor. All right, so we got the engine oil drain plug back in. Clean the screen inside the fill tube here. We pulled the dipstick, clean the oil filter. And now we're gonna drain the injection pump oil. So the drain plug for that is right here. And then the fill plug is here. So I'll probably pull the fill plug out just to see. I'm expecting it to be mostly fuel in there. But we'll drain that and then pull the fill plug and let it drip while we fill up the engine oil. And then we'll move on. There's our wires we gotta fix still. All right. So yeah, I pulled the fill plug. It's supposed to be up to the bottom of the fill plug. And it was full of fuel. So, full with fuel. Supposed to check this daily, I believe. I read in the manual. We're gonna go ahead and pull that drain plug. See if I can do it while I record it. Stinks too, so it's that old diesel. I don't think there's any oil in there, it's just diesel. Stinky old diesel. So we'll just let that drain while we add engine oil to the engine. And we'll come back and fill it up with oil. Ready?
Yep.
Be surprising if it wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Not bad, actually.
Yeah. If it was white,
It's
look,
got
it was
some
bad.
debris on the magnets.
It's not white.
No.
You should think properly draining.
Well, I just don't have the vent plug. This one it's gulping. But pretty thick for my drain plug, man. You see my magnet?
Oh, wow.
Got some wear on it.
Doesn't look like it's been changed, so it's like, why?
Getting full.
That's a little clumpy though.
There's Milky. You recording that? There's your Milky stuff.
Oh.
Did you get it recorded, Luke?
Yeah.
It's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
I know. Seems like it just separated.
Yeah. A little bit of milk on top.
Yeah, that's good.
Can look.
No big chunks. You're gonna have metal collections, and we don't know when it was last. You just don't want to find big chunks of steel in there. So we'll clean this out real good. Actually, that magnet comes out. It's moving around in there. Yeah, we'll be able to, it's too slimy. I'll clean it. So we got the boys working on the tractor. Ian's soldering up some wire fittings. We got a new battery post clamp. As you can see, this one. That's how it was when we took it off, besides the bolt was still on it and it was rusted on there. So he cut that off. We got a new battery clamp we put on there. we're not doing super thorough wiring because you need to troubleshoot it, see if there's anything. So we're putting one of a clamp on, type battery clamp on there. Desoldering this on because that wire made it longer. And then Luke is over here pulling off the seat bolts so we can get to the hydraulic fill port and filter. We want to clean that hydraulic filter up there. I think that's the fill port over there. So right now we got the transmission fluid draining. It wasn't that bad, a little bit of milky stuff towards the end. We got the old fill plug there, and you can see it's just slowly dripping still out of the drain plug. So we're just gonna let that sit and drain while we wait. Luke's taking off the seat. We'll do hydraulic fluid, and then we'll grease all the joints up. The oil's done. I think we're getting close to being done. Keen's working on electrical. And then we'll test out the hydraulics and the electrical. Run it for about a minute or so. Get the oil circulating, shut her down, check the oil, top it off. So the tag back here says to use motor oil only in hydraulic tank. From what I read, the service manual and the operator's manual says to run engine oil or hydraulic oil with anti-wear properties. So I got some hydraulic oil I'm gonna run through it, 20 weight. That's what the book said, 20 to 30. We're going into winter. We're gonna run 20 in it, and we can flush the system with it and probably drain it here after we run it. Just clean all the insides out. So the transmission's getting 80, 90 weight gear oil, which is what it calls for. I put 1540 standard in diesel Della 400. I like the Della 400, it's a good high detergent oil. So that we'll run that in the engine and the injection pump. We'll go from there. We're getting closer. I'm curious to see if we can pull this whole seat assembly up with the plate. Yeah, we'll get some W. All right, so now we're gonna drain the hydraulic tank. Down here on the right side of the tractor, that white plug there, we're gonna pull that out and drain our hydraulic oil. It's got a wrench on there. So you can take your ratchet off now. Then you should be able to do it by hand, maybe. Just put it down. Okay.
It's still tight.
Other way.
Oh. Have to get to.
It doesn't look bad. It's not milky.
Looks clean.
Yeah, doesn't look bad at all.
Oh, it smells.
I think they used engine oil. Yeah, it's not hydraulic oil. I think it's engine oil. That's fine. It says you can use engine oil. So. Get the filter out. Needs to be cleaned pretty good. You can see this is hydraulic filter. I don't think it's ever been serviced because I had to cut through the paint to get it to separate. So that's too bad. So we're gonna get that cleaned up. I'll probably have to make a new gasket for it. We're gonna get that cleaned up. I'll get some gloves on and clean this up real good. We'll get it back together. The oil didn't look bad, so we'll get this cleaned up, back together, and fill it up with oil. All right, so we got the hydraulic filter pulled apart. You just pull this O-ring off and your discs come off. You can see filter's definitely working. I don't know if it's ever been cleaned, especially since they still had the factory paint holding it together. I had to scrape the paint off just to get it to break seal, and that's under spring pressure. So I say not to take that because that's the pressure relief valve setting. Take your wire off and you change the pressure. So you can see how this is adjustable threads in there. But we're gonna clean this up and get it back together. All right, we got it all cleaned up. I'm just using brake cleaner. So we'll go ahead and put it back together. Okay, so this is the hydraulic reservoir cap. What we took this, take some snap ring pliers. You'll pull this little plate here off, and then there's a foam filter type material in there. We just cleaned it out real good. It was pretty saturated with oil. There was a gasket on there, but we went ahead and made a new gasket with some material. We had to do the same thing with our filter cover plate. We made a new gasket. It was not salvageable. I don't know if this has been apart. So we got new oil in there. We're gonna put our cap on there. I'm not gonna put the seat down until we start it to pump hydraulic fluid through everything, and then we'll, because this is full now, but this is not. So I want to make sure she's full. All right, it's the next day. I'm back to try to finish up this Belarus tractor. So far, we got the engine oil changed, topped back off, centrifugal filter cleaned. My son was working on the wiring, electrical, so he was able to get a new battery clamp on there and repaired that broken wire. And then he started troubleshooting to figure out what the issue is with why none of the electrical works, or lights specifically, or the horn. So then he went, tested the wire fuses that they have here. And he's got some cleaner sprayed on those. But he ended up narrowing it down to our toggle switches. These are the two toggle switches on the right-hand side. One is no continuity through it at all, and the other one is stuck with continuity on it all the time. So that's where these lights are on all the time. But that's it. None of the other lights work. So then I got two switches on order for those, so that should fix it. And then he was also able to get, once he turned on the parking lights, we bypassed the switch, we were able to get the dash lights to work as well. So looks like that's what's gonna fix it. We did change the hydraulic fluid and clean the filter. Got it back together. It's topped off. We're gonna leave the seat off until we run it and cycle the hydraulics to get all the fluid run through. And then if we need to, we'll top it off with the seat off. So next thing we're gonna do is, I got the drain plug in the transmission. So we're gonna top off, fill up the transmission gearbox with some 80/90 gear oil, multi-purpose gear lube. I expect to be changing this in a couple months just to kind of clean everything out. So I'm not using, anything special, just some oil I got from the Tractor Supply. Once we're done, once I top this off, I gotta pull the clutch cover, inspection cover off and grease it. And then we'll go through and grease all the other joints. And I think we'll be just about done. I think, oh, the rear drive axle, the final drive. So we'll change the oil in the final drive. And then we should be ready to fire it up, let it idle, and check everything out. Okay, we got the transmission oil. You can see it in there filled up. The manual says the fill plug's on the right side and the check level plug is on the left side. On this particular transmission, it doesn't have any type of plug on the left side of the tranny, so we're going by the fill plug. Makes sense. Got a fill just below it. The manual said 2.65 gallons or 2.64 gallons, and that's roughly what it took. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the plug back in, clean that up, and then check, see what else. So the next thing we're gonna do, change the oil in this hydraulic pump drive unit. So this right here is the fill plug, and right there is the drain plug. So we'll go ahead and remove those. Okay, you can see that's pretty nasty oil. Looks like engine oil, which is acceptable. And we definitely got some moisture in there. So that is for that hydraulic pump drive unit. So we're gonna let that drain, and then we'll add some hydraulic oil in it. All right, so I think we are ready to fire this up, let it run for a minute or two. I'm gonna raise the loader. Actually, I'll probably cycle the loader, raise it up, tilt the bucket so I can get some of the lower Zerk fittings. Got everything else greased up. Hydraulic drive, pump drive, oil's been changed, transmission fluid's been, gear oil has been changed. Hydraulic filter cleaned and fluid changed, engine oil filter cleaned. Fuel filters were cleaned when we were troubleshooting it, and replaced the second stage filters. I'm gonna put this cover back on because I'm short on my gear oil. I misread my book, and inside here is our final drive, and there's a reservoir for each one, and they take the same gear oil, 80-90. So I didn't have enough, so I topped it off, made sure it was full. Looks fine. When I get the rest of that oil, I'm gonna pull it in and I'll do that. And then I'm also gonna clean those cooling fins up here for that, get that cleaned up. So that'll be on our process, but right now we just wanna run it, pull it, run the hydraulics through everything, and then shut her down, and I'll top off the fluid for the hydraulics. If that's all good, we'll put the seat back on. Maybe we'll go do some yard work with it. All right, so got a little to-do list we were able to accomplish. I think just about everything on there. This is for the Russian Belarus 250. Replace the starter, change oils, engine, injection pump, transmission, hydraulic. We clean the primary filter, replace the secondary filter, clean the oil filter. Haven't cleaned the air filter, and greased everything. So that's the only thing we got left, is clean the air filter and the final drives in the rear axle, and we are done. I did find I got to replace the boot over the transmission shifter, and seal the 3-point hitch hydraulic lever is leaking at the valve body. So I'm gonna have to look into that and see if I can get some parts for it and fix that leak. So those are only two things. So we did some grading out in front along the road here, and it worked great. So I think I can erase this and shorten up the list, figure out what we're gonna do next. Thanks for watching.